Welcome to Ivory Blush Roses. In today's video, we're going to continue making improvements to my ugly side yard by building a second garden bed. When I filmed this, it was late April and perfect time to build the second garden bed. We picked up the wood for the garden bed a few days before. It's a pretty big pile. The new bed will match the garden bed that we put in last fall. It's been doing okay, though spring has been slow coming to Colorado this year. So this day's job is to put this new garden bed in. The arbor's going to go here, there's going to be a top over it, and it will come down into the new bed. And then the bed will go back about 6 feet towards the shed and alongside the shed, and then come out here to where this pole is and back over. We're also going to put skirting around the bottom of the shed to keep the rabbits out. My first task of the day was to paint the fender washers like the ones I used on the first bed. Because of the wind, I wasn't able to paint them earlier, but this day wasn't too bad. I purchased a box of 100 fender washers, so we shouldn't run out. I waited to paint them until the temperature rose to 50 degrees or more, and then I prepared to paint. I laid the washers out on the same piece of cardboard I used last time, and painted them with a matte black Rustoleum paint, making sure to coat all the edges. The second order of business was to cut the 1x2 lumber to make a second trellis like the one for the other side of the arbor. I got the sawhorses set up and ready to go. There was one piece left over from the first trellis that should be the correct length, so I used it first. I purchased a couple of extras this time, so I had plenty of wood just in case. I measured the existing trellis and then marked the new wood to make the first cuts. I cut the longer vertical lengths first and then smoothed the edges out with a little planer tool. Next, I marked the length on the horizontal pieces and trimmed them to the correct length. Once again, I smoothed the ends out. Then I measured the spacing and marked where I needed to drill pilot holes. I drilled all the pilot holes at the same time, making it very easy. Next, I marked the verticals and drilled those pilot holes. And then I put the trellis together using small screws. I made sure everything was square and tightened everything up, and the trellis was ready to go. The next cutting project was to cut the small square lath pieces that will actually hold the trellis in place. I pre-drilled the pilot holes in these as well at the same spacing as on the first trellis. After work, my youngest son came to help. This was our longest evening working together. We thought that this bed was going to go very quickly. We neglected to account for the extra time it took to level the lowest boards, because the ground slopes down towards the neighbor's house at the end of the bed. We dug a little trench first, and then it was a matter of leveling and adjusting, digging some more, until finally we got it completely level. We stacked the shed side boards to check if we were level, as I had previously marked how high the boards needed to be on the shed to be level with the first bed. There were a couple of big tree roots to dig out, so Zach did most of that work, as I was just barely out of the arm brace for my broken arm, and while I could do some things, I couldn't do the heavy digging. There were more and bigger roots than we anticipated, so it took some extra effort to remove them. We pounded in some stakes to keep track of where our corners needed to be, and they also helped us keep track of where our level spot was. On the shed side of the bed, we only needed a 2x4. On the arbor side, it was level with the other bed, so we didn't need an extra board there. On the outer side, we used a 2x6 board because the ground was a little lower there. We took care to make sure that the top of this board was level with the bottom of the arbor side board. Of course, we found there were a couple more roots to deal with. This board required a lot of adjusting, so once we got it in place, we pounded in some stakes on either side to hold it in place. Then we put another 2x6 board into position on the far end. Once we got all the lowest boards leveled at the right height, we secured the corners and double-checked to make sure that it was level all the way around. Finally, we could start constructing the next level. With our foundation in place, this part went quickly. But we ran out of time, so rather than building the top layer, we spent a little time sorting the boards and deciding where each one would go, and set them in location on the top so we wouldn't forget where they went. The boards laying on top of the bed make it look a little uneven with the first bed, but they're actually quite level. On day 2, we only had an hour or so to work. Our goal was to get the top level of boards put together and brace the corners. We started with the corner next to the shed first because to access that corner, we had to construct the corner away from the shed and then move it back into position. As you can see, it went together pretty quickly. We were able to get 2 of the 4x4 corner braces in, and were able to get the third one cut as well. We didn't get that last one screwed in as we were simply out of time. It was looking good, and I was pretty happy with how it's turning out. On our third day, we were going to have some help, but Zach and I hoped to get the rest of the braces on first and get the arbor posts up before they got there. That did not happen, as you'll see. We got the intermediate braces in place, and the first helper arrived while we were getting these in. We were having trouble as there was a bow in one board which left a gap, and you see us pressing and leaning on it as we were trying to tighten the gap before we screwed the braces in place. Zach's girlfriend and her son came to help as well. Once the beds were braced, we tacked some ground cover cloth around the inside of the bed where the gaps were to keep the dirt from sliding out. Zach works for a sand and gravel company, and he was able to bring some fill dirt to put on the bottom of the bed, so I didn't need to buy another 2 to 3 yards of planting mix. While we finished putting in the 4x4 uprights for the remaining side of the arbor, the others were unloading the fill dirt into the other side of the bed. It was a lot of work getting the 4x4 posts leveled and everything attached. By the time we got the uprights secured, they just about had the pickup truck empty of dirt. We were just a little bit short, so we raked it all over to the arbor side so that I would be able to start planting the next day. The fill dirt went in on the bottom half of the bed. I set the rows that was going to be planted there so that we had an idea of what depth it needed to be, and then everyone started moving buckets of the good and expensive planting mix soil that I had gotten last year. We positioned a board to separate it just to make sure we didn't fill in the bottom with the good dirt. The bucket and dolly system worked very well for moving the dirt and made it so much easier. While everybody was still moving dirt, I decided to go ahead and put the trellis up. I marked the beams to show where the square lath needed to go. I pre-positioned the screws in the lath pieces so when I put them up it was quite easy to attach it. There will need to be some adjustments to that top beam when we finish it. We put a tarp between the beds and put the remainder of the planting mix on it until Zach could get me the last of the fill dirt, and that allowed me to get the driveway cleaned. With the first pieces of lath in place, Zach helped hold the trellis while I secured it into position. Then we put the second piece of lath up and made sure everything was level and looking good. I didn't film on day 4, but let me show you what we were able to get done. Zach came with another load of fill dirt and we were able to finish filling the bed with both fill dirt and the good planting mix. We were also able to clean up the ground around it and added a little bit of fill dirt where we had dug out to set the lowest boards. We still need to put the skirting around the shed, but that's going to have to wait for a few weeks. This bed is now ready to plant. I can't wait. We still need to put the arbor top on as well. Those 2 top posts are going to need trimmed because they're a little bit taller than the other trellis posts. I have to mention my driveway again. I got it cleaned up yesterday and it feels so good to finally have my driveway back. A huge thank you to everyone who helped me get this second garden bed in. They got all that dirt moved in an amazingly short period of time and their help was such a blessing. Stay tuned for further episodes in the progress of my garden. I'll be planting soon, we'll be creating the top of the arbor, and I'm going to be laying some flagstone. I deeply appreciate all of you who watch my videos. Have a beautiful day and I'll see you in the next video.